Hey everyone, welcome to the Ludwig Live Gear Review. I'm gonna take a few minutes and wait for some guests to jump in, kill a little bit of time, but happy Friday, everybody. We're very excited to be doing this and very excited to have a incredible drummer who just recently, one of our recent additions to the Ludwig team, here as a guest, and we're going to talk about her new kit, get into the nitty gritty, get an idea of some of the tones behind this drum set and things like that. Let us know where you're joining in from. All right, we got 9 people. Welcome. Happy to have you. Happy Friday. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Ottawa, Canada, in the house. What's up, Robin? Thanks for the love. If you're tuning in on Facebook, give us a like. If you're tuning in on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. Give us a like. Share your thoughts and comments and questions. Michael, happy Friday, man. Thanks for tuning in from New Hampshire. We got Brian in the house from Southern California, guitarist. Hey, we love guitar players. We need them, right? Guitar players and drummers, ultimate duos. Grass Valley, California in the house. Steve W., thanks for joining. Japan in the house. Woo! All right. That's my kind of place. I'm really bummed out because I should be in Japan this summer typically to do the road shows, and I won't be, unfortunately. Very disappointed about that, but I miss Japan. I'm looking forward to getting back there as soon as possible. Marshall, thanks for joining from Austin, Texas. Killer. Getting a few more people coming in. Get your questions ready. We're going to be talking about Madden Klass's gear that she recently got. She just joined Ludwig a few months ago. We've been working on fine-tuning what her spread of drums is going to look like for a lot of the different performance projects that she has going on. Super busy drummer. And she's just such a well-versed player with such a unique style. And I think seeing her transform and getting behind the Ludwig kits, it's really cool to see how the instrument has complemented her playing and sort of inspired her to take things up a notch. And the videos that she's been posting recently have definitely shown that. So we're really excited to get into some other stuff that you guys haven't seen that she taped for us throughout the week. We're going to run through the sizes of the drums. We're going to play through a few tracks and check out some different tunings that she can get out of the classic oak. So really stoked to get into that and those particulars. So we got a few people here joining in. Thank you for joining. For those that have just joined, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or like and comment on Facebook. We want to see some questions. We love the conversation and we welcome it. So without further ado, I want to welcome my very special guest, and I'm super excited to be doing this live gear review with Madden Klass. Hey,
what's up?
What's happening? How you doing?
Not much. I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
Yeah, stoked to have
Friday.
you. Yes, yeah. It is Friday. I'm celebrating with a nice, bubbly Topo Chico.
Very nice.
People know me to do.
You got just H2O.
Yeah, that's all you need. That's all you need.
That's it.
Cool. We got people tuning in. People are coming in. I want to give a little bit more time before we get into the meat and potatoes of everything. But I wanted to ask, what have you been up to during the quarantine? What are some of the fun activities that you've taken up during this time? You've obviously been busy with a ton of drum stuff.
Yes,
but
luckily.
Yeah, I mean, what's quarantine time been looking like for you?
Well, every day it's kind of morphing into the same thing, but I'm pretty happy with my routine. I've had some time to take care of myself. I've been I feel like life has been kind of pulling me for a long time. So it's nice to choose what I want to do with my time a little bit more. So I've been, getting to bed earlier. I try. I've been working out.
Nice.
For the first time in a long time. My mom's a trainer, which helps.
Cool. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's been really fun. That's been a good thing for me to put my mind on. And then I come down to this basement and I make music, and I've been recording a lot. as soon as this all went down in March, as soon as we found out we were going to have to go home and leave school and whatnot, I was like, all right, what gear am I buying to keep myself busy? So
Yeah.
I bought an interface, and I bought a bunch of mics and cables, and I'm doing the thing, doing some recordings for people, for myself. So that's been consuming me, and lots of new drums. So
Right.
it's been pretty good. I'm lucky.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you've been a student at Berkeley now for how many years?
About 3 years.
Okay.
On and off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So did during this time, did you have any performances booked, or were you just focused on this semester and then maybe touring in the summer?
Yeah, not so much just this semester. It was funny. I was doing a lot of like intense focus on school for the first 7 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And then I swear the week that this all went down was the start of like gig marathon through the summer. I was going to be gigging with my bands almost every single weekend. And we had a lot of cool stuff planned, which is, it's sad that it's not happening anymore. But I guess while I was at school, there was a lot of focus on school.
Right.
It's usually a hybrid of the two, but there was going to be some intense gigging that got lost, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's been interesting to say the least. I think we've all had to figure out different ways to sort of navigate the day to day and sort of rearranging plans, which is unfortunate. But overall, it's been really cool to see a lot of different people sort of staying positive, but also really accepting, the benefits of, the change of life. Like you mentioned, you've been able to work out a little bit more and things like that. Myself, I've been able to tend to a few of the different projects that we've had going on for Ludwig. Somebody asked about hardware, and it's like, yeah, we've been in hardware world for the last several years now, and super intensely, especially during this time, playing around with different designs and exchanging, information back and forth, Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that.
Of looking at the screen.
Yeah.
You got to take time away.
Yeah. The digital interface is getting super heavy, but it's also super cool. Like, I feel like it definitely has opened up dialogue a little bit more regularly between people, which, you and I talked about this before. It was like, sometimes maybe that's not the thing we would have jumped at, but now that it's here and we're doing it, it's a lot more fun because you really start to engage in some really rich, inspiring conversation.
Yeah.
And that's just always good for the soul. I feel like the more you kind of talk things out, and like, even if it's simple, like, doesn't even have to be like, I need a problem to fix. It's like, you're kind of just vetting a creative idea. It's just really cool to have a little bit more of that face to face. And I feel like the dialogue and the conversations are still really rich between people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like it's a hard time for everyone, but at least we can keep creating and we can keep coming together. Like, there's more time to come together somehow, which is a weird thing. But I find that I'm connecting with people that I never knew I was going to have the time to connect with, or the means. So yeah, the recordings, like, I'm talking to all of these musicians around the world, and they just need tracks and they need drums and some like people I've worked with in the past. We've never been able to, get that project going, but now we realize we have to do it this way. We have to do it remote. We can't keep putting it off. It could have been done this way in the first place, but now there's more motivation.
Sure.
So yeah, we're all coming together in the music world, which is cool. It's needed.
Absolutely. I think the more we're banded together through this, the easier it is going to be to get through it, which is really cool. And I think it's really cool that we've still, stayed committed to, especially a lot of these initiatives, to sort of like kickstarting these live events, and a lot of different companies have been doing it. And that's really cool because it helps continue to bring a lot of those same elements that inspire us from a normal day to day, still accessible and tangible and things like that. So that's really cool. The interesting thing I always go back to is, from all of this, like, I'm really eager to see how, like, to me, this is a point of evolution. I'm really eager to see how we evolve as people, as communities, and things like that, which is really cool. But
this is where the music world was headed, but now we've kind of fast tracked that and we're starting to get on the different technologies that were going to be needed in the future and
Right.
are beneficial to us, so we can keep growing our brand and doing our thing in the online world.
Absolutely.
It's very real.
Yeah, that's the perfect word for it. It's real.
Yeah.
Really real.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to talk about you joining Ludwig and
Yeah.
what that was like for you, sort of knowing that, okay, here's a path to get behind, a very historic brand with a great assortment of product. But what was that? What sort of guided you a little bit more, and what excited you to pursue Ludwig as a kit to even consider for a lot of your work?
Well, to be honest, I hadn't played Ludwig kits too much before, but sort of my entrance into the Ludwig world. And it's funny, this was right before you hit me up. We actually had some miscommunication. I didn't see your email for like 6 months, which was ridiculous. And at that time, I was about to start going on tour with Mike Doty, and I was like, I need a kit. I need a kit. Like, I don't even know where to begin. Maybe I should just wait till the time is right. And you had already reached out.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen for a while. But so I needed a snare for tour. I needed like a side snare. And I, last minute, as I always tend to be, I ran into Guitar Center. This was the day that we were going to load up the car to go down to Memphis. And I was like, I just need something that works and something that's affordable. So I tried a couple snares. I think I had like 20 minutes in the store. And I found the super light snare. It was like behind the counter on the bottom shelf. I was like, can I try that one? And I put it on the snare drum. I had no time. I hit it a couple times. I was like, boom, that's it. That's the response. That's the touch I want. That's it. That's what I want as a side snare. It was really
Nice.
perfect. Has the ring that I wanted to match the record. So I got it. I brought it on tour. I would only hit it like a couple times during the show.
Right.
And about like 3/4 of the way through the tour, I was like, I just love this thing too much. I need to make it my main snare. So there was one day where we had like a matinee show and a night show. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try my snare for the main show. And then I'm going to switch it for the night show. And it just clicked, man. It sounded so good. I was so stoked about it. And I used it for months after that. And then
That's
you hit me
awesome.
up and I was like, oh, wow. Like, I'm now familiar with this company. They're a great company. They have some amazing players and great history. So I was stoked to get into it with you.
That's
really.
awesome. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, it's interesting that, and also not surprising that you mentioned it, the snares being sort of the gateway to the brand. That typically is the case with a lot of cats that I talk to and a lot of players over the years. It's like, the student model acrolite or something like that. It's like, that's what hipped me to Ludwig. But that it always seems to be, some sort of rite of passage for drummers. So like,
Yeah.
I gotta have a Ludwig snare. It doesn't matter what I'm playing. Like, as long as there's a Ludwig snare in the collection, I'm good. And even engineers, like studio owners and things, like, think that way. It's like, I gotta have a Super, I gotta have a Black Beauty, so on and so forth. There's so many classic, iconic sounds in the snare line product portfolio alone that definitely make it like a very good point to start and really understand the performance and function quality of what the instrument does. And from there, it's like, oh, the kits are probably just as good as this drum. And people soon to find out that becomes the case. It's like, oh, wow, the drums go with the snare. It's like, yeah.
I didn't even know what I was in for, honestly, but
That's awesome.
I had a lot of faith.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So that snare drum was a super light.
Super light, yeah.
6.5 by 14, or did you get the 13 inch?
13. 13 by 5, right?
7, I think. Those are 7 by 13. Yeah, that's the GC model. 7 by 13.
Oh, wow.
Those are great snares. Those are steel snares. Very budget friendly price point options, but like, it gives you the performance grade and quality that you need. So that's the really cool thing about our product assortment. If you're going for something, if you're shopping in a tight budget, but you don't want to sacrifice performance integrity, you still have that, within the product assortment. Or if you really want to get to, that high end top shelf product, there's a reason why. The tolerances are greater. The materials that are used are far richer, so they influence a much richer, fuller sound. Things like that.
Longevity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's the product assortment, I think, is still very complementary no matter which level you start at. But that's the really cool thing, is you can start from, at point A or B or C and still, have a sound and a product that can be very applicable to a lot of the different work that a drummer is going to find themselves doing, which is super cool.
Yeah.
We got a few more people that have joined. I just want to say welcome. Thank you for joining us. Please feel free to comment, ask some questions. We will get to them throughout the conversation. We're going to take some time going over the kit. We're going to check out some demo video of what the kit sounds like, things like that. So thank you for tuning in. We're happy that you're here. And we definitely welcome the conversation and the questions, and we will get to as many as we possibly can. But thank you for being here. Madden, let's get into exactly how you landed on the classic oak and the size arrangement that you ended up going with.
Yeah. So I think the first characteristic I told you that I wanted in a drum was something that was controlled and focused, and had a lot of depth and punch. And you didn't even hesitate. You're like, classic oak. That's what you want. First you said Keystone, and then you said classic oak was coming out, and I was like, cool, let's do it. I'm super down to try that. So I left it in the hands of you, and I knew that's what we were going to do, and that's what was going to get me the right sound. And as far as configuration, for a long time, I've only used one rack tom and one floor tom.
Right.
And I'm literally spoiled now because I have 3 rack toms. It's ridiculous.
Fills galore.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really wanted to get I just wanted a lot of drums. I mean, who doesn't? I didn't want to really settle for the same thing. I wanted to expand my sound, to be moving around, and that's where my more recent influences were leading me to, and the projects I've been a part of, and just like my tastes. I've always wanted to get some more drums, and you were pushing me on the 12 by 22 bass drum, which was super weird. I hadn't heard of that being a thing. I've always known it to be 14, 16, 18, and so on. So you were like, 12 is it. And I was like, really?
Are you just making stuff up?
Are you sure? Is that really going to be for me? And I would look around and I'd be like, that's a 14. A 12 is going to be really small. So I was nervous, but I got it. And first of all, it looks great. It really looks great. The kit is nice and compact. And the more that it's here, it just looks normal. Now a 16 looks odd to me.
Right.
And it's just punchy. It's such a unique size. I'm glad that I can call it my own. It's really cool.
It was interesting. I remember that conversation we had when, we were talking about sizes, and you had mentioned sort of coming from a smaller footprint size wise, and you're like, well, I'm going to scale up. What is that going to do with height and spread? Mm-hmm. And, there's so many factors when you're putting together a kit that you got to consider, which makes it pretty mind-boggling sometimes. Yeah. But you got to consider the ergonomics of the kit. How does your body adapt comfortably throughout the kit? You got to think about the tone it's going to produce, and how that complements what you're doing, what you're composing. And that's just the kit, and then you still got cymbals to think about. So the drums are such a complex instrument, but it's such a beautiful instrument because when you get the right combination of components together, you can create some really magical things. Yeah. And that was kind of one of those things that in sort of talking about your sizes, you were like, well, it needs to be, I know I'm going up in bass drum, what's that going to do to tom height? How is that going to, affect the floor tom, the positioning of the floor tom and things like that. And sort of understanding the tones that you were going with, because that's the thing, when you play with depths along with diameter, you're shaping the tone.
Mhm.
Like for instance, for bass drums, the deeper you go on a bass drum, the punchier it's going to be because you're basically pushing the air a lot further through. So you're basically losing the return. It's diminished return the longer you go
Yeah.
essentially on the bass drum. Whereas the shallower you go, you sort of preserve a lot more of that power and that air moving inside of the drum. So it's going to emphasize the presence and it's going to emphasize the low end. And a lot of people think, well, you get a much quote unquote bassier tone by going deeper. It's not true. You get a much more punchier tone, but because of the diminished return, you're not really putting the emphasis on low end.
Yeah, you're not capturing
Yeah,
it.
there's a certain point where you get a nice combination of punch and body, and that's why the 14 by 22 has worked, or the 14-inch depth has worked as a standard depth for so many years for so many bass drums.
Mhm.
But there's also there's definitely a purpose for something a little bit deeper or a little bit shallower. So when you and I were talking, like, well, I still want that punch and I still want the low end, but I don't want either one of those two to be overbearing.
Mhm.
And it's like, how do we find that proper balance? By going with the classic oak, because of the nature of the shell and the cut of the bearing edge, it's really punchy. So you can get pretty narrow on the depth on the bass drum without losing that presence of punch and getting too overwhelming with low end.
Yeah.
And especially with the right head combination too, you could put maybe a little bit more of an exaggeration to the punch as well.
Mhm.
But what were you doing with the bass drum? So you had a blanket in there, and
Yeah.
did you still have the stock heads on the kick?
Not the only one that I took the stock head off of was the batter head on the kick, and I put Aquarian Super Kick 2.
Oh, nice. And that's on the classic oak kit?
Yep, that's on
Yeah,
the classic oak.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, I just put a blanket in just to tame it a little bit. It's not like it rings out of control or anything, but because it captures so much low end,
Right.
I get texts from my mom telling me that it's just too much. She's like, the kitchen's shaking. Or that's what she said about the classic maple. And then the classic oak, she was like, oh my. That's what she said. And I was like, I was like, really? Like, this feels very controlled to me, but I guess it just had that response through the ceiling where she was like, you need to do something. So just a tiny bit of dampening did the trick.
That's a
So
good sign though. If your mom noticed that
yeah.
something was happening, and it's funny. Like you literally had a kit that was rattling the walls, whereas the kit you had before maybe
Yeah.
didn't do that as much.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a totally different sound because down here when I played the classic Mabel, I was like, whoa, this kick is huge. It belongs in like a giant room. It's
Yeah,
going to sound
yeah,
great in a giant venue, but I didn't feel like the classic oak had that same sound. Like it felt like it was almost ready to go.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I guess to her, she had a different opinion. So,
yeah.
and
Well,
she usually doesn't.
and the funny thing is, I mean, the oak shell in general is a much louder shell in the way of presence,
Mm-hmm.
but the classic maple is a little bit more resonant.
Yeah.
So those two, there's definitely two different levels of presence going on there, two different types essentially. But both of them, but yeah, I could see how the classic oak kind of seemed overwhelming at a certain point in time because yeah, and it's funny. I was telling this to somebody else the other day. It's like, especially with classic oak, for whatever reason, the harder you hit that drum, the better it sounds.
Oh,
Let's say
yeah.
it doesn't sound good if you're tapping on it lightly, but like sometimes it's easy to choke out a drum if you're really bashing on it. It really doesn't do much. But like that shell, for whatever
It
reason,
takes it.
responds.
It
Yeah.
takes it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been having so much fun going from like really, really quiet, like my stick is barely leaving the head to like a huge, like just power strokes and listening to what that sounds like next to each other, which you'll hear a little bit in the demo I did.
Right.
It's
Right.
cool. It's crazy.
So
It sings.
speaking about that, let's get into the demo here in a few minutes. Can you give us a walkthrough of the kit and
Yeah.
call out the sizes as we go through it?
Yeah, for sure. Let me just turn you all around. How's that?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. Sweet. Let me just take my wire here. All right. So first we're looking at the 12 by 22 inch bass drum. got one little blanket in there. And also we're using the night oak finish, which is like a black wood stain, which looks unbelievable. I was so stoked on this. And here we've got 7x8 rack tom, 7.5 by 10 rack tom, which is super cool. 8x12, and the floor tom is 14x16. So those are the sizes, and right now I'm rocking the Vibra band with the triad bracket. That's what it is, right?
Yep.
Yeah, which is cool. It really lets the drum breathe, which I'm happy about. And this is my first time like not mounting my toms into the bass drum. This is my first time having them suspend, which is so fun. I that's what I've wanted for a super long time, and it all fits in really nice because of the shallow depth of the bass drum. I can get it all in tight, which I kind of need because I'm a shorty.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the sizes. Did you want me to get into some of the hardware as well?
Yeah. Let's see. You're rocking with is that the double tom stand for the 8 and the 10?
Yes, double tom stand. And I've got these. I think they're called the Atlas mounts.
Aerodyne.
Aerodyne mounts.
Scissor lift. Sorry, scissor lift.
Yeah, these are cool. I can like just attach this guy. I can mount it right onto the stand and add another attachment to hook up any cymbal in any place I want. So I don't have a ton of stands down here, like very limited stands going on. This is pretty much the same as what I used before, just 3 stands, but now I've got it working for everything.
That's awesome.
So it's multi-purpose, which is really cool. And then this is the Atlas standard hi-hat, which is awesome. It has a great response, gives me like a super loud chit on my hi-hat. Really heavy duty, super solid. And then this stand, is this from the Atlas Pro?
Yeah, the snare stand. Yep, that's an Atlas Pro snare stand.
Yeah, so this has a great mechanism where you can just move it around like in any direction you want, which I know every time I sit down to the kit, I'm like, I need this just half an inch closer to me, and then the next day half an inch farther from me, and it can do all of that, which is great.
Awesome.
And then the seat from Atlas Standard, I believe. But here's another look at the kit from this side.
That's such a good looking finish.
Right?
Yeah,
right?
we introduced Night Oak a few years back. I think it was 2017 when we sort of rebranded Keystone into Keystone X, which is now Classic Oak. But the Keystone line was sort of developed for kind of a more budget price point kit for USA made drums. That's one of the things I guess I should mention about this. These are made in our factory in Monroe, North Carolina. But we noticed that with Keystone X, there was a really large fan base for that sound, but it was limited compared to other series like Classic Maple and Legacy Mahogany in that you couldn't really configure the different sizes. So if you and I were talking about like a year or two ago, you wouldn't have been able to get a 12x22 bass drum or the 8-inch tom and things like that, or the different depths that you guys got. Now, with this, we've sort of evolved, the Keystone X line to become Classic Oak because it really now mirrors a lot of the counterparts with being Classic Maple and the Legacy series, in that you can truly, with all the options and all the different options that we offer under that roof, it's available as a selection in Classic Oak now. And so we've sort of wanted to emphasize that, this is kind of a new era for the Oak Maple hybrid design that was Keystone. It's like it's now joining, the elite level of options and still under the same manufacturing principles of everything else. But now just having a lot of those options available to really craft a specific sound out of the Oak Maple shell that we have there. But,
I thought it was so cool when you sent me like the spreadsheet.
Oh yeah,
you were just like, why don't you take a look at this, see what you like? And I was literally in disbelief that you were allowing me to choose every single component of this kit. I think I messaged you. I was like, do you actually want me to do that, or did you just send this to me to look at? And you were like, yeah, go for it. So it's all customized to my liking. It's really crazy. Like even the lugs and the bearing edges, which we have double 45s on this.
Yeah. Yep.
I was able to do it all. And
yeah.
that was crazy. I honestly learned a lot from that process.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, you think about a lot of players at that point in their where they are as a player when they're thinking of, a high-end kit or a custom kit. They really want to get very specific as far as the build out, sizes, edges, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the cool things that we were able to do with Classic Maple, is introduce the different edge styles. You can now choose one of 3 different edges, and you can do a different edge per drum, which is even cooler and kind of takes it even further left field. But still very valid. There's a lot of artists that have sort of taken advantage of that, like Carter McLean and Jonathan Barber, where their most recent kits, you see like the toms having a double 45 and the floors having a full round over. And it starts to make sense by the way they tune and what they're playing and what heads they're using and things like that. With Classic Oak, we've stuck to the double 45, the traditional edge we've done when it was Keystone, because that basically under the manufacturing principles of that shell is the type of edge that's most practical for that type of shell design, because it is a oak maple hybrid where you got a ply of oak on the outside and the inside, and then you got 3 plies of maple as your core. Sorry, that's my dog barking.
Okay.
And with that, you have with oak being such a porous wood and having a lot of it has the tendency to tear away when you're doing certain cuts. So you'll have bumps and holes and things like that in places where you don't want them. So we were able to play with the design a little bit to make sure that we were able to develop a shell that captured the sound, our vision of an oak sound, with a lot of the integrity that we need from the edge performance. And by putting the edge to the maple, it's a much more solid piece of wood that would guarantee consistent edge to head contact without any gaps and things like that. Because the moment you have that, it becomes a drum that's very difficult to tune and things like that. So, but yeah, I think you made a really good selection with the Classic Oak, and especially in choosing the sizes. The finish is just, you can't go wrong with that finish.
I know. I know. That was probably the hardest part, was choosing the finish, but I couldn't get this one out of my mind. I thought it would be really sick, and it is. I love wood stain, and an all black wood stain. I feel like you don't see that a ton.
Right.
So yeah, I'm stoked on it. It looks great. Super classy.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I want to get into switching to the playthrough of you sort of going through each tom and sort of giving us an idea of what these drums sound like, what they have to do. So we'll get into that, and maybe we'll go into some more questions on some of the specifics of the kit. So tune in. Those
That
drums
floor
sound
tom.
massive,
I
insane.
know.
And
I
it's funny,
know.
like
It's
I said, the more
crazy.
you push it, the more you lay into it, the 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 better the drums sound. They just start to get like super bombastic, but in a good way. Like you're obviously not. There was
Yeah.
no signs of like getting too gainy or clipping in any way. The harder you got,
Mm-mm.
like those mics kind of responded to that, which was super cool. But the one thing in sort of seeing that, the first thing that popped into my head was just balance. The
Yeah,
level of,
for
of,
sure.
of balance that's there from tom to tom is insane to me. Like that's
Hmm.
the really cool thing about the classic oak shell is that you hit a drum, it does what it needs to do, and it gets out of the way. So when you
Yeah.
do a fill like that where you're going from left to right, by the time you get to the right, that's the only drum you're hearing. Like there isn't any extra noise happening up top with all the other drums.
That's what I've
And
always wanted.
and that's super critical, especially like when you're doing a ton more recording where things are under a microscope and you got to work with things a little bit more intimately. The easier it is to work at that level with, and the more balanced it is, the less work it takes out of your hands and from a post-production standpoint. So like
Hmm.
you send it off to your engineer and he's mixing it, or somebody to master. They're
Yeah,
doing little work to need to finesse and massage drum tones into the right spot.
exactly.
And it kind of,
It's EQ'd on its own. It's
yeah,
ready to go.
that's a perfect way to describe it. Like classic oak has that shell, because we do it as maple and oak. It has a tendency to shape the tone naturally, so
Hmm.
that it's almost like a pre-EQ'd shell. And
Exactly.
that's no diss to anything else, like the classic maple, but it's just it's a different animal all on its own,
Hmm.
and it has a place and a purpose, and it does that really well. And the really cool thing about music in general to me is that there's so many different genres and there's so many different styles and colors and tones. And I look at the Ludwig catalog, and it's really cool to see that a lot of the different designs sort of cater to those specific pockets and genres of music, which is really cool. And it's not to
Yeah.
say that like, well, you can't get away with playing oak and jazz. It's like you probably can. It depends
Yeah.
on who's doing it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
arrangement is. Like there is no right or wrong, but the cool thing is that there's options.
Mm.
And that's a big deal for a lot of players, is to have those options. Like if we were just a company that offered classic maple shell, it's like that'd be cool for most of our customers and most of our fans. But
Hmm.
you and I talked about this. The classic oak has a tendency to be very lively,
Yeah.
so it could be very intimidating to a drummer that really doesn't know how to tune and balance a kit properly. And that's not really a perfect science, like tuning a guitar, where like you have these tools and you hit the thing and it's like it's done. Like
No,
tuning
trust
drums,
me.
yeah,
It's not my forte, but these drums are ready to go with a couple turns. Like they just are very balanced in itself, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely,
there's not a lot of talk between the batter and reso head if something's
yeah,
wrong. Like it's
yeah.
just kind of they work together well.
Yeah, no
Um,
doubt. I noticed
yeah.
that too, between seeing your clips on social media with playing the classic maple kit and
Hmm.
playing the classic oak. When I saw the shots from behind the kit, the classic oak, I knew you would have minimal moon gel compared to the classic maple, and I knew
Yep.
exactly why. I was like, we didn't even have to have this conversation for that to exist,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but it sort of made it very apparent. Like when you set that up, it's like you didn't have to think twice.
Why would I put moon gel on this? That's
Yeah,
the thought. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Totally.
that's
Sounds
insane.
great.
Yeah, that's bonkers. But those toms are super, are just so pristine sounding. One, but like yeah, the balance is the thing that really makes that assortment just work, and that shell work.
I didn't even have a mic on the 8-inch tom.
Oh
I
really?
only yeah, I had the other three mic'd up and somehow the overheads grab it at the same level and it just all sounds ready to go. It's
That's
crazy.
bonkers. I didn't know that. I
want
didn't
to
catch
get
that.
yeah, I want to get a
That's
mic
nice.
on there. It needs some love, you know. But for now, this is what I'm working with and it works. It totally works.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Let's get into another clip, because I'm obsessed with listening to the tone of those drums now. Especially I
Yeah.
got these really nice Bose noise canceling headphones. So this
Nice.
is my first time doing one of these with these on, and it's
Hmm.
like the sound is just bonkers. So like Yeah,
Sweet.
I'm stoked to see more. So let's check some stuff out. Quick shout out to everybody tuning in. Thanks for joining us. We have the great Madden Klass joining us today. We're reviewing her classic oak kit in night oak finish, and we're going to get into the second demo playthrough of the kit. So let's check it out. Awesome playing, obviously, as always. Just stellar stuff. And that's I mean, your playing has such unique character to it. Your strike on the snare, there's something about the way you come down on the snare drum that that's like not a lot of people do it the way you do it. So
that
bravo.
means a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that stood out to me when I came across your work. I was like, yo, that playing is legit, but that left hand, like, what is happening? Because there's a level of finesse and power without power being too overwhelming. Like, there's a lot of drummers that just like go just head on, like hammer to to the head, and it's just a loud rim shot. But yours is just kind of like snap, and it delivers in such a unique way that's not something that you really can teach somebody or learn. That's like one of those more innate things that you do, and it's really cool because it comes out in such an interesting way in your playing.
Thank you.
That was what I really liked about that. I felt that when watching that, before you got to that last fill and you finished the beat, like I felt like you didn't want to go to do that fill, but those drums sounded so good that you had to do it, and you have the drums there that it's like, let's hit these one more time.
I've never gotten to do that. This is the first time I've had 4 toms and an opportunity to play a fill like that whenever I want. So I'm going to take advantage of it and show you guys how it's done. It sounds great. I really feel like when I first sat down to this kit, it almost like pulled the playing out of me. I swear to God.
Cool.
I was setting it up in pieces. So I had the kick and I had the 2 toms, and I just couldn't stop rolling around the toms. Like it was just taking the playing out of me where it felt like effortless.
Right.
Which is everything I want to feel. Like I didn't have to tame it in a certain way to get it to feel and sound the way I want. It just kind of worked for what I was going for. And I feel you will for a lot of people.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I want to get to some questions here. Let's see what we got. Let's see. People want to know about your tuning approach combination and sort of what setting did you have everything at in those last 2 clips?
So that was like more of the standard low tuning or medium, but that I think is where the drum is sitting best for me. It's not too tight. Like it was very easy to just put the vibra band on, put the head on, and just tighten it up, and until I got the feel that I wanted. Like the feel matched the sound when I was tightening it up. So it wasn't anything too specific. I just wanted like a really fat sound to each tom. And I just tuned until I got that. And it wasn't much. It didn't take much processing on the reso head or anything.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, the toms do have the standard factory heads on them, right?
Yeah. That's what everybody's saying. Like, no way. That's the Emperors, right?
Yes. We do. Clear Emperors on the batter, clear Ambassadors on the reso.
Yes. Yeah, like I said before, the only one that I switched out was the batter head on the kick drum.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted something like really heavy duty, so I put a Super Kick 2 on there.
Nice.
But the rest of the heads, work just fine. And I don't know. I'm just gonna keep him as long as I can, to be honest. And I've haven't been using clear heads for a while. I've always used the ebony heads,
Right.
but there's no way I'm ever not going to use a clear head on this, because you can see the wood stain on the inside.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's sick.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest things. Same with the classic maple. You can see the white paint on the inside.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
On the oak stuff, for the stain finishes, we do matching interiors just to spice them up a little bit. We typically do a sealer coat. I mean, the inside of a drum is going to need a sealer coat of some kind. And 9 times out of 10, it's always clear. But we decided to take more of a, just spice things up a little bit, I guess, and matching it from the inside. And it's sort of playing off of, what you saw in older Ludwig drums with the Resicoat in the 60s, where they had the white interiors, and later on in the mid 70s you had the granitone, which is kind of like a textured gravel look to it, but it was a sprayed on finish, and it does add a little bit of jazz and spice to the sound as well. But from an appearance wise, I mean, the drums are just as much visual as they are sonically pleasing, and so we sort of gravitate to like trying to make them sound good and look good at the same time. Like those are definitely the criteria in choosing a drum kit.
Yeah, true. It looks great. Clear heads. From
What projects have you been most sort of inspired to use this kit in, and why?
Let's see. Well, like I said, I've been doing a lot of recording, and it's more pop based as of lately. So the kick works great. Like the kick is ready to go. It's not overwhelming. It's got the low end that's necessary, and the floor tom sounds great. So I've been rocking that for a while. Sometimes the other projects don't need all of the toms, so I'll like take my other mics and I'll use them as room mics. But when I'm utilizing the whole kit, that's really for my group, Space Junk is Forever.
Okay.
And the band leader of that group was the one who got me on like the 2-3 tom tip. Like when I first met him, I was like, I need 1 tom, 1 floor tom. Like that's all I can do. I'm a short person. Like I can't do too many drums, but it totally works for the sound. And I've been craving having my own big kit like that for so long.
Yeah.
So I'm using it for all the recordings I'm doing with them right now. And I'm always like so stoked to capture it and send it over and see what he thinks. Cause I'm like, come on, you can't deny it. This sounds great. So for that, and then really just my own stuff, like posting videos on Instagram. It's like mainly where I do my thing. I've just been using it in all aspects, really, as I'm down in the basement. I can't wait to take it outside, and onto a stage.
Absolutely. That's really where you're going to find, like, the way I tend to portray classic oak sometimes is, it's great for the control and the focus. And it's especially great for bigger stages and bigger rooms where it's really hard to deal with a very vibrant and resonant kit, because you're playing to so much open space, and so you're dealing with a lot of the slap back of the rooms and things like that you don't need so much tone going out, because there's going to be quite a bit of it coming back to some degree that's really going to interfere with the control. When you're playing a big room, you're going to be heard. That's why there's a massive PA system and things like that in big rooms, because they're going to take whatever you bring onto the stage and push it to a nice setting where it's audible from all levels of that facility. Whereas if you're playing, and it's perfect for that. However, for like club gigs, like 300 cap rooms, bars and things like that, the classic oak would do well in that, because it's naturally a louder kit, so you'll have the presence. But a lot of the times when you're playing smaller clubs, you don't have especially drummers, they don't have a monitor accessible to them. and that's tough because if you lose sight of your sound sonically, not visually, if you're not really feeling the presence of your tone, it really affects the overall performance and your approach to what you're doing. You might end up hitting harder because of that when you shouldn't be hitting harder, things like that. And that's going to influence fatigue, and that's going to throw off your playing. Like, it becomes a domino effect.
That's crazy. Honestly, I hadn't even thought about that aspect because I've just been here in my basement, and it feels great. But one of the things I struggle with most on stage, and like you said, especially in a small club where I'm not given a monitor, is my sound. I hit the kit and the sound leaves and I never feel it again.
Yeah.
So my performance feels like very thin.
Yeah. Dry.
It doesn't have any body to it. And I really struggle to play that way. So I'm actually so excited to bring this out and feel that response that I'll have shooting back from the drum.
Yeah.
Without needing a monitor. That's going to change the game for me.
Right.
That's everything.
Yeah. And the point that I was going to make to that is that you're actually going to get more out of the classic maple kit in that setting than the oak because of how resonant the classic maple tends to be, which is perfect. But it's funny because I hear we have the classic oak stuff in backline across the country in all the major cities that we house there for when artists play late night or the Ellen show or whatever. They use rented gear, and a lot of this stuff, like, it used to only be classic maple that was out there, and it was there because that's what was most popular at the time, and most of our artists were playing classic maple. So it was kind of like being on their own, kit that they use on the road, sort of thing. But you also got to keep in mind that when people do shows like that, it's throw and go. There's no time to finesse a kit, and like, you just got to go and you got to play, right?
Yeah.
And so under those type of pressures, the classic oak performed really well because, as you experienced and spoke to, it took very little work to get it to sound good, and it was focused. Like, it wasn't overwhelming. So not only did it tune easy, but the projection was within a realm that is very workable and usable in a low dynamic setting and a high dynamic setting. And that's exactly what bigger stages and small TV studios, those are the kind of platforms and environments that you need a kit like that, to sort of perform and complement that setting. Whereas the classic maple, it takes a little bit more to dial in the sound. And when you do, it's the richest sounding drum out there, in my opinion, that we make. The legacy stuff sounds awesome, but the legacy stuff's very specific. The classic maple has just got a whole nother energy and life to it, and the versatility factor as well. But again, it takes a lot of time to know how the drum works and responds to balance it out properly. And when you're getting ready to play, the morning news show, you don't got that time to massage 4 times and make sure that they're all
get out
classic.
Your moon
Exactly.
It's empty. What do I do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, you talk about how much of a purpose certain drums have, and I think it's really great that you dove into it like crazy deep, to the point where you're like, I'm going to try to mess with the classic maple and the classic oak. And I definitely see different. I mean, and you respect both of them equally, because you're starting to understand the point and purpose each one has, and you'll continue to do so more and more as sort of the world opens up and you get out there a little bit more with those kits. But like,
it's going to be so different.
Yeah, your journey is just starting, because those drums, when you take them in other rooms, are only gonna, they're only gonna continue to influence you even more, and make the experience, that much greater, which is super cool. So that I'm stoked of, and I hope that you come to Chicago at some point and play. Because I want to see some of those kits in action.
Yeah. It could have been, but I missed your email.
yeah, it could have been.
Never again.
I think I booked a last minute trip to the day that you did play Chicago. So like, we just missed each other anyway, even if we were locked in.
You mentioned that.
Yeah, I was like, I think I had a flight to the factory, North Carolina or something.
Oh man, but, we were in Evanston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Evanston, at the Space?
Illinois.
I think.
Is that what it's called?
I think that's the name of
it.
It
was a beautiful room.
Yeah, it's a Space.
It's a Space.
Yeah.
Space. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I saw Nate Smith play there a few times. He actually played there on my birthday a few years ago.
Oh,
So that
nice.
was kind of
Good
cool.
birthday.
I was like, what am I doing
Yeah,
for my birthday? I was like, I'm gonna go see Nate Smith play drums. It's like, that's gonna be pretty cool.
absolutely. Yeah, he came to Berkeley like 2 years ago. It was crazy.
Oh,
He was
right,
playing
right.
that beautiful green sparkle. Was that
Yeah.
classic maple?
Yeah, that was Classic Maple. Yeah.
It was killer. And I saw him in a smaller room and like the large performance room, both in the same day. So
Oh,
that was a
sick.
cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. On that subject, somebody asked a question about this, which is cool. They asked, who are some of your favorite drummers and influences?
Yes. Okay. Well,
Robin, by the way, sorry, Robin, thanks for that
Robin.
question. Maddie,
Yeah.
take it away.
All right. So some of my favorites would start with Elon Rubin.
Nice.
Yeah, 9 Inch Nails. He had a big influence on my life, and I didn't even know it for quite a few years because I was a big Paramore fan. That
Oh,
was like
wow, yeah.
that was like the first band that I truly got into on my own and like totally shaped the way I listen to music. And I didn't know that he played on that record that I had on repeat like 12 hours a day
Oh, wow.
until like only a couple of years ago. And then I got into 9 Inch Nails, and he's just crazy. I really look up to him. And then there's Stuart Copeland,
Oh, of course.
who's there's just no doubt. So that's another reason I've wanted a lot of toms. I want more toms. I want all the toms.
Yeah.
Like he influences me so much in so many different ways. And this kit, I feel like I can really express myself the way I would want to. That sort of emulates him,
That's
which
right.
is cool.
Yeah.
Same with Neil Peart. Like just
Oh, yeah, rest in peace.
that's absolutely, that was the beginning for me, 100%. And then Jay Lane, I really love, and I was going to mention he was like my influence for choosing the sizes for the classic.
Oh,
maple.
sick. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
6,
Jay's
the 8,
great.
the 10. Yeah, I really like little toms, but I was like, maybe that's too weird. Maybe a 6 and like no 12. Maybe that's just too weird.
Yeah.
But I saw that he did that, and I was like, okay, no doubt, I'm just gonna do what he did.
Yeah.
All the way. So
What's some of your favorite Jay Lane projects? He's done quite a bit.
Primus.
Yeah.
Primus
Of course.
is what I know him most
Okay.
for.
Yeah.
And I was told recently he played with Charlie Hunter. Is that true?
Did he? Maybe. That one I don't know, but it could be.
I know I had no idea about that. I know that Carter plays with Charlie Hunter.
Yeah. Charlie plays. Yeah, Carter plays with Charlie quite a bit.
Yeah, I love Carter too. I saw he hopped on the live with Jonathan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm always like gigging in Carter's hood in Connecticut. I'm like hoping that he'll walk in, but hasn't happened yet.
We'll have to do maybe like a double build clinic with you and Carter one day.
Yes,
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, he's a really great player. He's a guy that him and I spend like hours at a time talking gear. Like it's crazy, and we'll go down the rabbit hole. But it's super fun because like I feel like every time I have these conversations, like I learn something, or I learn to look at something a little bit different, which is really cool. Like it's great to continue to learn about the instrument and learn what it can do.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole part of art. Like art is about creating and reinventing and reforming and although the format of the instrument has stayed more or less the same, there's so many other things that you can do to it that although may seem like subtle changes, I think they really influence a lot of not only the way the instrument performs, but how you perform to the instrument. And those are my favorite type of players. Like there are drummers that play the instrument. And then there are drummers that play to the instrument.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, and you can pair up your swing and your own sway that's built in you along to the way an instrument is going to respond to that. When those two find a connection and a bond,
it's magic.
It is. What comes out is like it's some of the most best pieces of performance music out there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I loved seeing that unfold with you behind your kits, because I could totally see that happening in real time. And I'm not even
Yeah.
talking to you about it. I see your stuff being posted, and I don't. Every now and then I'll comment, but like I just sit back and you know, because at the end of the day, I'm still a fan, and I still see, you know, what everybody's doing and, you know, how they're playing, and, you know, all your stuff sounded great before, but seeing how it evolved to like
Yes.
like
It's the
another
next
level,
level.
it's like,
It's the
what?
next level.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah,
So like
totally.
that was really cool, and it made watching, you know, I didn't think that seeing you play could get any more enjoyable. And then seeing you play on a Ludwig kit, I was like, yo, with that tone, I was like,
This is
snap.
the package. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Thanks.
like, yeah, it was perfect. It was really, really good.
Yeah, it's special.
I wanna. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
it's just a good. It's a good combo. It's a good fit.
It is, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you're enjoying that, because one of the scariest things for me is getting it wrong. You know,
Of
because
course.
we didn't have the liberty of meeting face to face and us sitting in a room and trying gear out and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. You know, it was a few emails, phone calls, you know, of
Get
getting
it
that,
done.
yeah, and then, you know, it's kind of a Hail Mary from that for me. I was like, I hope I steered her in the right direction. And I sometimes, you know, when I go through that process, I was like, oh my God, it's gonna turn into a nightmare. She's gonna hate her drums, and like we're never gonna talk again, you know.
It's over.
Yeah. And so, and it was just really cool, you know, that it did work out, you know, even with just a few short conversations, we dialed it in. Like, yeah, that's
we didn't like go super far in depth with it. Like we probably, I could have been calling you every day and we could have talked about this forever, but I trusted you and you knew the characteristics I wanted, and that was it. That's all I needed. And I had no idea how different these two kits were going to be, but how well they would work for me in their own unique ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And it came out that way for sure. And how they definitely catered to something specific, but something still very practical to what you were doing in your round. And that was kind of cool that you had mentioned this about, you know, a lot of the stuff that you're working on is pop centric, and that the classic oak seemed to really work towards that application and that vision. That's one of those genres that like I tend to recommend this series extremely heavy towards, because with pop music, it's all about punch and it's all about focus, you know, because it's quick. It's like, don't distract anybody from what's happening on the front end of the song, because that's catchy. That's your hook, right? You know, that's what you want, you know, people moving and grooving to. And so the drums just kind of have to reinforce that underneath, you know, and be that foundation layer essentially. So those drums tend to be super complementary because of how punchy they are, but how round they still are, you know, in presence as well. But even for like super hard rock, to me, like these drums are great for metal.
Yeah.
They're great for like really aggressive hard rock. It was funny. I sent John Theodore, another Ludwig artist of ours, drummer for Queens of Stone Age, mostly known for like super loud drums like Vista Lights and stainless steel drums.
Yes.
They did a few one-off shows where he's like, yeah, we're kind of stripping things down. We're not trying to have like the full rig. He's like, I need something a little bit more like still me and still can keep up with me, but like a little bit more of a smaller footprint kind of vibe. And I was like, bro, I was like, you should really consider, at the time it was Keystone X.
Yeah.
I was like, you should really, I was like, let's start here. I think this is where it needs to go. I was like, and if it needs to change, maybe we just need to go a bigger size. Because the thing he was doing too was going from a smaller one size kick drum to a smaller kick drum. So I was like, let me send you the 12, 20 bass drum and 14.
Oh, wow.
And that's him going from a 22, 13, 16, 18, right? So I was just like, but he wanted to go to that format, but he's like, I want something that's going to be that small, but like bombastic. Like it needs to be like a mini Ripper. And I was like, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. So like, I'm going to task myself with designing a mini Ripper for you. And it was based off of that. And he got it and just went bonkers. He's like, man, this kid is like, he's like, I don't think we need any bigger size drums. Because I was going to tell him, I was like, if we're going wood, at least maybe try I was going to recommend what we did with your kit about going shallower depth kick on a 22 and using smaller tom sizes of 12 and a 14. But like the classic downbeat format worked for him. And it was great because it was, I mean, Queens, I mean, their stuff is super powerful and grimy and gritty. Like, so those drums like just sit in really well. So it was interesting to see how using that for him wasn't as much of a departure because of the power that classic oak has, you know, and the power and the punch. And that's the thing with like the drums that he typically plays with that band is like they're super punchy. It's all about a lot of that punch, which is super cool. But I want to get into another video. This one's a little bit longer. So you sent me a video with a track. You want to let us know a little bit about the track that you're playing to in this one?
Yes. So this is it's called Lovely Lonely 5 by my band Space Junk is Forever. And I felt like this was a good one to demo all of the toms because they come up like every other phrase of the song. Right. I was like, what do I want to do? I need to showcase the tom. So this was perfect. There's a lot of cymbal work too, but it doesn't really take away from the sound of the kit. So I think this will be a good balance of everything. And I even demo the sound of the wing nut.
What?
So you look out for that. It was a mistake. It was a mistake, but
we got some Easter eggs in there, y'all.
Yeah, that's right. I really wanted you guys to hear what it sounded like if you miss your cymbal and hit the wing nut. So just look out for that.
Nice, awesome. I'm gonna play this now. Sick. What a fill to end on. Come on.
Yeah. So that's the tom tune. That was actually the first tune that I wrote the drum part with the group. Nice. Because all the tunes prior were written by Jordan, who also plays organ, and he was playing the clavinet in that one. So I went tom crazy because I had the opportunity. Yeah. And he would as well. So
that's awesome.
That was the right one to showcase.
I was already like hit back a little bit as soon as you came in with the flam on the 12. I was like, or was it the 10? The second time here,
the 10.
8-10. Yeah, you came in that flam on the 10. I was like, oh, hot drum, here we go.
Yeah.
This is gonna be good.
Yeah.
So you're in for something good when a flam on a 10-inch tom just sounds bonkers. You're like,
that's it. That's it.
That was cool. How old is that track?
I think we came out with that last April. Yeah, right. That's about a year old.
How
what are you gonna say?
How exciting is or how fun is it now to play with the different setup that you have now, the new kit?
It's so cool, man. Like I said, we've been he's been sending me a ton of stuff, and I've been sending him just rough parts back, and I'm like, you just can't deny how good this sounds, and it's great. The problem has always been that I haven't had the right setup to practice for this group.
Right.
And now that is my setup. I will always be playing these 3 toms whenever I can, these 3 rack toms. But I bought that classic maple for Space Drums Forever because we do so much traveling around, and I always want to use my own kit. So I was like, okay, let me get a kit for them, keep it there so it'll be in videos and it'll be on the records. But now I have them both just sitting in my basement staring at me, and I have to choose all the time what I want to play. So it's like maybe I'll do 2 weeks on with the classic oak, and then I'll set up the classic maple. I can't have them both existing at the same time.
Yeah, so. Yeah. No, you got to figure out how you're going to combine both drum sets now.
Oh my God, true. I'll use another one of the double tom mounts, and I'll put the 6 and the 8 over the hi-hat, and I'll have my roto tom. So
yeah, and just do the other bass drum as a gong bass drum, because why not?
Come on, done. You just gave me so many dangerous ideas.
You're gonna be like, all right, Mom, don't mind me breaking this wall down to make room for this gong bass drum, but
straight up,
this is happening.
This is it. Or
That's hilarious.
a double kick drum. I'll do.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Options. Yeah.
A ton of options, nothing but options.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So what are you most excited for post quarantine? What right now it's really important to keep our eye on the prize, I think. There's a lot of stuff going down, and we all got to stay optimistic and as concerned as well, not just, just blatantly oblivious to it.
Mm-hmm.
But what are some of those things that you're looking forward to, or sort of working towards as, things start to come back online to some extent?
I mean, I'm taking this time to hopefully come out a stronger player.
Right.
This is shed time. This is training time. So just honing in on that and working on my engineering skills. I'm trying to do that, but I'm just excited to get back on stage and play with other humans and see my friends again and just celebrate.
Right.
So,
where is most of Space Drunk based out of?
We're kind of split along the East Coast. I'm in Long Island, but I'm usually in Boston.
Okay.
For school at Berkeley.
Yeah.
And the guy who plays Rhodes is in Boston. The main guy who plays organ is in southern Massachusetts.
Okay.
Bass players in Philly, and the other guitarist is in upstate New York.
Wow, cool. How did the band form?
I hopped on Facebook. It was 2 weeks after I got to Berkeley, and the keyboard player Claude, he was looking for a drummer for a band, DM me if you're interested. And I had just gotten to Berkeley and I was looking to do something, and that was 15 seconds after he posted it. So I was like, hey, what's up? And Jordan sent me his music, and I freaked out. Freaked out, the inner prog girl in me. I was like, no way is this real. This is everything I've liked about prog music since I was young. It was very organ centric, and it was just sick. So we got together, me, Jordan, and Claude, and then the bass player Dave, who was a longtime friend of Jordan's, he joined because Jordan was doing bass and and the right hand, and it was just too much. So they wanted to take away some of the responsibility. And then the
They took
guitarist,
that away and gave you more toms.
exactly, had to do something. And then there's a lot of lead synth parts. So I recommended my friend Matt, who's like a sick guitarist,
Nice.
and we all just came together,
That's
and we're
rad.
going strong. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I love what you're working on, and the arrangements I think very much showcase you're playing really well, but I think showcase the band really well. You know,
Yeah.
again, like music that's sort of made to just be like a shed fest for any given like one person. Like I don't know, that's not easily digestible for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
Yeah, it's all over the place.
yeah, I think what you guys are doing is a really great assortment of rhythms and colors of sound, um, and dynamic shifts too that just really make a lot of sense and make it very enjoyable to listen. And
That's
that's the
awesome.
hard thing. You know, a lot of people think it's super easy to write a song and you got your A part, your B part, your C part, back to your A part, you're done. You know, it's like it's hard. It's hard because there's so many working elements, and there's so many things that sort of have to fire at the right time in the right way with the right sound and the right attack and delivery, so on and so forth. And there's a reason why there isn't countless number one acts out in the world. You know, although there's so many people playing music and there's so many musicians, it's really hard to break through. Also, not it's very overcrowded, but like it's very hard to compose a piece that is going to be compelling enough to draw you in, but also digest that in a sense to where you're really starting to understand that journey of whatever track you're listening to or album, and also find enjoyment through that journey. Like there's a lot going on, I think, in the subconscious level when you're listening to music. And that's why it's really hard to be a musician, because you're also, as you're writing a song, it's a level of or there's a component rather of pleasing yourself as well. You want to write something that you're stoked about and that hypes you. You're basically, every time you write a song, you're writing your own hype song, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you very much got to be very enthusiastic about what you're putting together. And how that's going to translate.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do, honestly, is writing parts that cater to whatever song I'm being given. So I love doing it with Space Junk. I love doing it with my other group, Ravi and the Houseplants, which is super different. And now we're fleshing out some demos, which is fun. I'm getting to show them the different kits I had. First, it started with the classic maple, and now we're doing some more on the oak. I absolutely love writing parts, and it's even more fun to do it on these gorgeous kits. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's super cool. So I wanna let the audience know where they can find you, some of the projects that they can be on the lookout for.
Yes.
And obviously, if you got any questions, for those of you tuning in, please ask away as we're coming down to the final minutes of our live gear review. But Madden, where can some of the folks here find your work? Social media, website, things like that.
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Instagram. It's just my name, Madden Klass. I made a website recently that apparently nobody can find, which is bummer. But it's called Madden Klass Drums, and I think it'll be working soon.
I think I found that website. I think I think that's where I sent you an email from. Because I got your email from somewhere.
That was the wrong website, and that website needs to go. That's from when I was like 12 years old.
Oh, word.
That's what's coming. That's why you got that embarrassing email address. I was like, no way. But soon there will be a new and improved MaddenKlassDrums.com. Be on the lookout. And I'm hopefully starting to get into some YouTube stuff. You could subscribe if you'd like. It's just Madden Klass. But yeah, Instagram is the place. And then I have records on all the streaming platforms with Space Junk is Forever and Ravi and the Houseplants. Some other groups that I've played with called Calling Company. and some newer projects in the works that if you follow me, I'll keep telling everybody about. There's a lot of good stuff happening in this basement. Soon to
Nice.
be. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Madden, thank you very much for joining us. I'm glad that things are working out to and maybe beyond expectations for you on these drums. I've very much enjoyed seeing a lot of the stuff that you've been putting together on these kits and a lot of these pieces of music. And I know a lot of the fans as well have been very excited by this. Posting your announcement on social media a few days ago, like that went really well. It was really cool to see the support and the excitement.
There were like mixed responses. It was like, oh, cool, it's Madden. And then it was like, Jeff Porcaro, is that you? And I was like, sorry to disappoint, but no. That's like,
yeah.
It's the glasses and the brown hair, I guess.
Yeah. You gotta love the internet. I mean, there's always some commentary there that's just like it's
funny.
It's
funny.
It is, and you can't even. It's to the point where you can't even get upset anymore. You just gotta laugh and just joke.
Yeah.
You know, and just join the joke.
I thought they were like complimenting my playing. They were like, "Oh, was that Jeff Porcaro?" Like, "Oh my god!" And I was like, "Cool." And then I finally realized when it was just a picture that was posted and people were still saying that, I was like, "Oh, okay, I understand now. Sorry to disappoint, but it's cool."
Well, I am equally stoked to be on this live stream with you, as if even had it been somebody like Jeff Porcaro. Like your playing is, to me, on that level
Thanks,
of awesomeness. And so thanks for taking the time, and hopefully we can do some additional live streams. I mean, you got another Ludwig kit in that basement, so maybe we can talk about that next.
Let's start this all over.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We're sending out a new link.
Yeah.
No, tune in. I mean, there's definitely many more things to talk about, and that's a really cool thing about the Ludwig product assortments. There's so many really cool options. There's so many great talking points that, especially in times like now, it's not accessible anymore as easily to go into the drum store and try these things out, or even go into the drum store if you can under the same sort of, under the same level that you used to. You got to keep your space. People's times are limited in the store, things like that, and it's understandable. We got to be concerned, and we got to be safe and healthy. At the end of the day, we want us all to get through this together. But it's cool to do these kind of things because we sort of bring the instrument, to everybody at their home, so they can understand what this gear does, what this gear can do for them if they're thinking of a new kit, or even if they own a Ludwig kit and haven't really figured out, how to use it that well, or things like that. It's really cool to like open that conversation up and have that exchange. But I'm really stoked that we were able to do this.
We got to open the dialogue online. It's the only way. This is the way we contribute to what's going on.
But it's fun.
Cool, man.
Yeah, cool. I enjoyed it. All right, Madden. We are going to end on that note. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, everybody. Stay healthy, and have an awesome weekend.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Uli. This was fun.
Yeah, no problem. All righty.
See you soon.